welcome back to another episode of Mixtape Book Club. Today, my guest is the young Pakistani author Awais Khan. He has published 2 books, and today we will be talking about his generic journey of becoming an author, and also his latest book, which is No Honor. Welcome to the podcast, Awais.
Thank you so much, Fatma. It's so nice to be here today, and thank you for having me.
I'll start with the typical question. How and when did you decide that this is what you wanted to do as a profession?
Well, the thing is that when you're younger, you think that maybe this is a profession that you can do exclusively, but you realize later on that that's not possible. So the thing is about making time for it. So I think it was back when I was after my master's actually that I really decided that, okay, fine, I'm going to take this career path or whatever I'm going to be doing in my life, but I also want to write. So I'm going to find out time. I'm going to sort of find time to write, and I'm going to keep it as an alternate career path. And one day, maybe doing really well, I can make it my primary career path. So I think the seeds for this were probably sown when I was very little as a reader. I mean, I used to read a lot of books, but I never thought I'd be a writer as such. But yeah, I think it's just a gradual process as you grow older.
So
yeah.
Would you like to share, obviously now, if it's an alternative career for you, and I think for most of the authors around the world, except for a few exceptions, they do it with this is considered still a side hustle sort of a thing. So if you want to like to share what if you can say what your day job is.
Oh yeah, so I basically I am in it's a very weird one considering I'm known as a writer, but yeah, mostly it's real estate, but I also teach so that's another. I have 2 side hustles. So yeah, so I am the founding director of the Writing Institute as well, which basically I teach creative writing to people all over the world now, but it started off with just Pakistan initially. So these are basically affordable courses, but high quality ones that people who might not be able to afford those super expensive courses in the UK can take one of these. So that's what I do. That's what I really like to do, and that's what I do to help people out as well. And yeah, so these are the kind of things I do, and then I write as well. So,
yeah. That's very interesting. Can you share if somebody wants to join your course, how can they reach out to you? Is there like specific cycles, or are they happening around the year?
Well, it actually happens around the year now. It depends on my availability because I feel that creative writing, I teach it all exclusively because I believe that that is the only way I can retain the quality I want. So my groups are very small, but I do try to run as many batches as I can. But anyone who wants to take my course can easily get in touch with the Writing Institute. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's the same, the Writing Institute. On Twitter, I think you can't really have that big of a handle, so it's called the Writing INST, something like that. But otherwise, it's the Writing Institute on Instagram, where you can get in touch very easily, or on Facebook. So our courses are like for 14,900 for a 5-6 week course, and so we do early bird discounts as well. So if you register very early, you can get registered for 10,900. So yeah, it's pretty affordable.
Yeah, that's I think very helpful for a lot of budding writers, because I don't think इसी तरह के courses I think are quite helpful in Pakistan, because formally तो अभी तक इतना वो course या degree type जो है I don't think इतनी effective है with the current global trends. So just share, you've obviously said that you were a reader, and obviously again and I have a firm belief in this, that you can't be a good writer if you are not a reader. So how was the journey? Obviously, the first time you published, just share how was that experience? Kya hurdles see as a Pakistani author that you faced?
Hurdles ही थी literally बस as a Pakistani author. I mean, that's the if you're a Pakistani author, then anyone who's watching this, anyone who will watch it later on, they will know how hard it is, how difficult it is. I mean, I'm not discounting the hardships of writers abroad in the West. It is difficult everywhere to get published. It's difficult to get noticed. But for Pakistanis, it's much, much more difficult because for first thing, we don't have educational programs in creative writing. ठीक है, it's fine. You can just learn to write by reading and all of that. That's fine. Okay, some people don't take these kind of courses or whatever. We can put that aside for a moment. But in addition to that, we don't have that culture. So that is a very big problem in Pakistan, that parents in general don't want their children to become writers because they sense it from the start that this is a career that will not give them any sort of financial security.
Yeah.
So they will actively stop their kids from writing. And because of that, they will also stop them from reading. I mean, that trend is now changing. A lot of young parents are now starting to take their children to bookshops, and they always have been, but still it's too little. And thirdly, we don't have any literary agents in Pakistan. We only had a chance with India back when there was no ban. A lot of Indian publishers were publishing Pakistani authors, so we had that platform at least. But after the trade ban, that's also vanished. So Pakistan, being a Pakistani author is literally being very alone. For me, I wouldn't say I was lucky. I mean, even then it was very hard. But I initially worked with an editor, very extensive. I first took the 6-month writing course with Faber Academy, which really changed my life. Then I went ahead and took the 3-month editing course with them as well. After that, I found an editor that I worked with for a couple of years on, and then I worked on my book and all of that. And after that, I started submitting to agents, rejection after rejection. Even after all that work, I got rejected by, I think, 60, 70 agents, I think. So, but then there was Annette Crossland. I mean, I did come very close. 5 or 6 of them asked for the full manuscript, but Annette Crossland was the first one to offer me representation, and I just pounced on it. I didn't look back. I didn't think, and I just went ahead. And even after signing up with Annette in 2017, it took 2 years for me to get a deal, and it was not because there was something wrong with the book as such. It was just because as a Pakistani, a lot of publishers couldn't see whether there would be a market for my book at all. So that it kept on getting turned down by publishers because they were like, we don't know where to place this, we don't know how to publish this. So you see, the hurdles are everywhere. You'll find them everywhere. So they don't really end. And even then, it was with a small publisher in the UK, but then we got a good deal with Simon and Schuster in South Asia. Like I said, that India used to be a very good option for Pakistani authors, but now that's gone. So so that was my journey.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a huge issue, but I think there's a huge potential. But unfortunately, as a reader myself, I don't see any, a holistic sort of effort at any level to actually fill in that gap and, pick it up. India ka ban tha, start mein everybody was like, this could be an opportunity for local industry to, get their act together, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And I also think that libraries play a key role. I always tell that, my sort of British Council was sort of my daycare. My mother was a doctor. She used to teach at Fatma Jinnah Medical College. And when a time came, first I used to like get books on her card, and then I, was like, I was really, really excited when I was able to get my own card. So I think that is also a lagging factor. Hopefully, we can only hope, that things get better.
I know.
Moving on, you talked about, the fact that you were able to finally, after all these hurdles, get published with somebody in the UK. Usually, I've seen that, globally, because our own local marketing is not at the par at which it should be. Our authors are at times usually, boxed into very specific genres or categories that, this Pakistani authors will write only specifically about this thing, and only this sort of story can connect. Uzma Aslam Khan, who is also a Pakistani American writer, she said that at a few times she got rejected, specifically saying that they didn't see a very typical Pakistani women character in her book. So they didn't really feel comfortable publishing her. So in your experience or from your own perspective, do you see that you have been boxed, or do you feel that, whatever you're writing, the writing you do, it has a specific audience or a specific genre that it's categorized under?
Yeah, that is a very interesting observation, actually. Yes, Pakistani authors are boxed into specific storylines because that's what the West believes Pakistan is like. But I do think that things are changing, and I have to commend my own publishers, especially Orenda Books. Now, they have never asked me to follow a specific plot or specific storyline. They liked my work, they liked my writing. They went ahead and published it. And for my second book, I have never been told by my publisher to write in a certain way or to write about a certain storyline. She said, "Go ahead and write the best story that you can, and we'll publish it," because she trusts me and she has that faith in me. And so that's I think I'm very lucky in that regard. And even within the company of strangers, it was my idea. It was all my. I wrote that book, obviously, and I mean, the publishers in the UK, in South Asia, they all responded well to it, and when they published it, the readers also responded well to it. But so I do think that the problem exists. So it might be with very big publishers who are investing a lot of money into the book. That might be a case that they might want it to be they might want to pigeonhole it into a certain category. But for the most part, I think things are changing in UK publishing. I don't know about the US because I don't have that experience, but I do think that the UK is changing, and it could be due to the fact that there are almost 3 million South Asians in the UK today, so they want to tap into that market now. So yeah.
True, true. Um, Moving on to your book. This is your second book, No Honor, and I have read both your books. While your first book also touched upon some issues, and it also had, while it was a very light read compared to No Honor comparatively, I think it was In the Company of Strangers was a very light read. But in the No Honor, you cover a very hardcore social issue that we have in the region in Pakistan, which is that of, as the name says, honor killing. So obviously our news is filled on and off. It's no longer, I think, that illusion that it happens in only specific segments of our society because of XYZ reasons. That has also shattered recently with the sort of news we saw last year. But what made you decide to cover this topic in your book and give it and because I won't be ruining the plot for anybody. We won't go into the details of what happened because we'll just stick to the overarching theme of it. When did you decide that, and did you other than obviously we know from, as I said before, from our news that this happens, did you do any specific research around the subject?
Yes, I mean, before I answer my question, this is what the book looks like. So if you want, you can just go ahead and buy it. With No Honor, the thing is that it all started with, I'm sure you're familiar with Kandil Baloch. So the idea was in my head, obviously, but when I saw that someone as popular as Kandil Baloch was murdered in cold blood, and then the world forgot about it and just went on as usual, I was like, if someone with that kind of influence doesn't stand a chance, then God knows what's happening in our rural areas to women. So that I think propelled me to do some research. I am my mother's from Multan, so I did go to Multan and I did some research. I met some people through people I knew. So in rural areas, I spent some time there. And that's when I realized. So then, when you go with someone that they trust, so they'll tell you their stories. So that's how I sort of started getting some stories and insights into life in rural Pakistan. And that's where I realized that, this kind of thing is more prevalent than we can even imagine, because a lot of it gets swept under the rug. A lot of people don't even report these things because of all the shame to the family and this and that. So a lot of this stuff goes unchecked in rural areas, and also the fact that there is such a fear of the police because the police in general is so corrupt in Pakistan. So a lot of people can't even imagine approaching the police. So if you're not going to log in the case with the police, then there's no way that case would ever be documented. So we might be looking at literally the tip of the figures that we see in these reports. They might just be the tip of the iceberg, because who knows what's going on in Pakistan. So that's what inspired me to research this a little more, and because of the fact that I was able to talk to people and do some research and everything, I was able to create a world that was convincing enough for readers. So hopefully I succeeded in that, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sure did. Given, as I said, that from your two books, this is a much heavier read comparatively.
Mhm.
Given the subject and all, how difficult or how emotionally taxing was it writing? And because, and again, as we said, we won't be giving any spoilers, but while it covers an issue, there is the protagonist ends up becoming a hero. And again, when the best part of this book, I think, was that when you start reading it, in the middle of it, you are like, can this person get a break? But finally that person does get a break, and things do settle in. So yes, it ended on a while it did end on a positive note. How was it, because how I would also like to ask within this question, that when you're writing characters, because you already shared, and I'm assuming that you were inspired by a situation, a plot line, and then the characters came in. So how emotionally attached do you get to your characters? And so just share about that and a bit about your writing process.
Yeah, well, I believe that when you're writing something, the characters take over. So the characters basically determine what's going to happen, and the writer sort of takes a back seat. And that's what happens with me all the time. And that is why I always emphasize that the writer and the character are not the same person. So when the character is taking over, then they're taking over. It's their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, and the writer has nothing to do with it. So I feel the same when I'm writing. I feel sometimes I feel very connected to the character, and sometimes it can be very disturbing to write something, and or but sometimes I do feel a bit of a disconnect. I'm like, this is the character doing it, and I just let them do whatever they want. So it's kind of like a tumultuous relationship with when I'm writing something. So it's hard to describe, but I do know this, that characters do take over when you're writing, and that is why sometimes it's hard to let go as well, because when you finish writing, you're like, you feel, okay, I don't think I've done justice to this character. I don't think I've done enough. And then you go back and then you edit it. And then there comes a point when you have to realize the fact that there is nothing more you can do now. And you have to give your editor or your publisher a chance to make some improvements or offer some sort of, advice or whatever. So that I think is a little hard, getting to that point where you realize that there's nothing more I can do. But while I'm writing, yes, there are parts where I will be, which I'm very disturbed writing. But there are parts that make me happy as well, as and I feel that something like this will at least create some meaningful social change in Pakistan or something like that. So yeah, it's a bit of a, like I said, it's not a very smooth relationship or smooth ride. It's a very bumpy ride when you're writing. Yeah.
So you mentioned editing, and also in the start you mentioned that you took an editing course. Editing your own work, in my experience in simply writing articles, at times it's really hard to go back, read it, and edit it. So how are you with that editing process? Because I think that's the in this entire thing, that's the most painful part of it. When somebody else does it, that's painful enough, but when you do it yourself, how is that? Are you a good self editor, or you don't like it?
I don't. I feel that as for my own work, I'm not a very good editor for my own stuff, because I will sometimes overlook a lot of stuff which I will feel is important, but it actually isn't. I think that's something a lot of writers suffer from, that we give undue importance to our work and we're not looking at it objectively. And that is why I really, really believe in the fact that someone else should read your work and offer you meaningful critical feedback. I am a good line editor. I think I can figure out mistakes in
Mhm.
grammar, plot, and not sorry, not plot. I can figure out mistakes in sentence structure, grammar, and all of that stuff, and I can do a good proofread. But I do feel that with structural stuff, I'm not that good with my own work. I can do good structural edits for people like my students or other people, but I'm not really good at that myself. So I do rely on someone I do trust as an editor. I do rely on their feedback, and that really helps. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how good editors are. If it's a good editor, they're worth their weight in gold, in diamonds, literally. So I mean, they're amazing people, editors. So yeah.
So my last question before I open it for Arij to ask her questions or have some thoughts that she wants to share. Your social media, you have been putting out teasers that another book is coming out. So can we get some more details on it? When can we expect it? What should we be looking out for?
Well, yes, I am working on the third book with it's again with Orenda Books. It's going to be published in sometime next year. I don't know the exact month actually, but hopefully it'll be in the first half of the year. So I'm very excited about it. I'm just about more than halfway through the book, and it should be ready in a couple of months at most. And well, it's very different from No Honor, and it's very different from In the Company of Strangers as well, because this is my first book that's not entirely set in Pakistan. So it's set between Pakistan and the UK. So that's why it was a bit of a challenge, because it really, a challenge, but a good one, because it helped me use my experience in the UK in my books, which I really wanted to do at some point. So I'm glad that I had a plot in mind, a storyline in mind, where I could use that experience as well of Pakistani being in the UK. What is that like? And I mean, I won't go into a lot of details, but it does tackle some important themes, important issues, as my books always do. But hopefully, it should be a good read, and I can't wait for it to be out, because I've been working on it for a very long time. So here's hoping.
Best of luck. I'll open this conversation for Reach to just join in and ask the question, or if you have any comments.
Hello to both of you. It was a wonderful chat. And one thing that I really wanted to share about my experience with the Writing Institute, I got married, I had children, and I forgot everything about, reading and writing. I just grew so distant from the books and everything. And I just randomly saw this page one day on Facebook, that there's this Writing Institute and they're having some courses. And I thought, oh, okay, I should have some pastime and I should connect with people who are readers. And I just went there randomly to make some new friends maybe. And my world changed after that, literally changed after it. I got back to reading. I reconnected with the writer in myself. And after like 9 years of leaving my studies, I'm back to academics as well. I'm doing my MPhil now. And I do owe it all to Awais and the Writing Institute, because, I had disconnected completely from my writer and reader self within me.
Well, that is
And
very
I've
fun.
read both of his books as well, and I find them excellent. You can see No Honor on my shelf as well, I think, over there.
Oh yes, I can see that. Yeah. But
So I was, when you two were talking about how, the UK, they do think that Pakistani writers should be writing in a particular manner about Pakistan, about Pakistani characters. Do you think that your writing, or, all the other Pakistani writers, they can write something which is out of the box, and it can, in the future term, it can change the perception of the West they have about us Pakistanis? Because people over there who have never visited Pakistan, who have not met Pakistanis, they do think that Pakistan is not, it's not modern to say there is no room for liberalism over there, and they have a certain perspective about Pakistan. So do you think that your books and other Pakistani authors can change that perception?
Of course, I mean, first of all, thank you so much, Arish, for your wonderful words. And I'm so glad that I've been able to make any impact at all in someone's life. But I mean, if you haven't already, you must check out Arish's reviews. And she writes wonderful reviews now, and she reviews them for publications and all of that. So that's really amazing. And I'm glad that it's so good that anyone that I've been able to impact anyone's life in Pakistan. So I will take that as a major win for myself. And thank you. It's been great to have you as a student, and now of course as a friend as well. So it's a huge privilege. And to answer your question, yes, I do feel that we are in a position to I mean, especially the popular Pakistani writers, are definitely in a position to change the perception of Pakistan. I mean, look at how well Miss Marvel is being received. I mean, it shows Pakistan in a very, I don't know, I haven't seen it all. I only saw the Karachi episode because I was very interested in watching that. I was like, I want to see how they've portrayed Karachi. So I really liked how they, even though they didn't shoot in Karachi, they did, I think, send a team to get those aerial shots and everything. So I think that they did do well with that. So I was very happy to see that. But so yeah, I think the same thing can be done in literature as well. Why not? And um, that's what I tried to do within the Company of Strangers. I mean, at least to show that there are people who are concerned with shopping and this and that parties. That Pakistan is not just about what the West thinks it's about. So that was my little contribution to that. But also, I feel that with this book that is just coming up, you will find that it's a little much different from what I usually write, and hopefully this should open people's eyes a little more about Pakistanis. So yeah, here's hoping. And yeah, but writers definitely have that power if they're popular enough. If they're not popular enough, like for example, then maybe they might be forced into or pressured into writing a specific storyline or something. So yeah, that's the thing.
You just mentioned that your third book is going to be different from what you usually write, but I would like to add over here that the two books that I have read, they are so different from each other, so I cannot pinpoint the type of pattern or the type of writing that you have. Both of them are so different and so distinct from each
That
other,
is true.
and I'm sure the third one is going to be different as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you. Yes, that's what I'm hoping for. That hopefully this will do even better than No Honor, and yeah, that's the dream actually. So yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and I would just like to add that, as Awais said, through I think through cultural aspects, we can actually break those stereotypes. You mentioned Miss Marvel, and I think this season's Coke Studio did a hell of a job with that. The songs have been like trending globally, still are. So yeah, I think hopefully stepwise, it's going to be a slow process, and maybe not even in our lifetimes, but hopefully someday stereotypes the typical ones at least we can break down. But I don't think stereotypes is a very sort of a complex sort of entity in itself. Thank you so much for your time, both of you, specifically Awais, and looking forward to your next book, and when it's out, we would like to have you back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fatma, and thank you, Reach, for joining in, and looking forward to chatting with you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.